All right, guys, it's 5:30, so let's get going. As we go along, if you have any questions, just put them in the question and answer bar. If you need to, if I need to have you ask it live, I'll go ahead and turn on your ability to speak. But I'll be monitoring the Q&A section as well as doing the training. So make sure I hit record. Okay, good. All right, so when I first began looking at preparing the seven-man umpire training, I went in and I started watching some film on what we were seeing from the chapter as a whole, and for the most part, we're pretty solid as a group. I think we've had a lot of good trainings over the past several years. We're pretty consistent, pretty solid as a group, but I realized there's a lot of little things that we're doing differently. So I wanted us to get to a point. That's why I called the training "Understanding the Basics." Like get back to ground zero of why we do what we do. So kind of starting from the very beginning of getting into it. And as we get into further trainings down the line, I'll be reaching out to different guys, or you can reach out to me, so that way we can get some actual film that you want to be looked at, or we can have play discussions on certain items that you want looked at. So, anyways, let's get started. First section I've got called "Back to the Basics," and we'll go through these kind of fast, and then we'll look at a couple of screenshots and a couple plays to where we're doing this. So when we're talking about reviewing ourselves and looking at each other on film and how we're analyzing, how even evaluators analyze what they see, these are some of the basic things that across the board we should be very similar in. So our initial positioning, 7 to 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. I prefer 8 yards. That's just where I'm comfortable at. It gives me a good spot. I kind of feel like I avoid the crossing routes there. Our alignment, we've talked about this a lot in clinics and stuff that we've hosted here in San Antonio and around the state, is we really want to be as centered up with the ball as we can. Now, understanding that we have big nose guards and nose tackles that are going to block that ball, we may need to take a side step or two in order to have a good view, because we have to see a clear snap to start every play. So we want to really look at our alignment when we're looking at these plays. Was I aligned in a good spot to start the play? Try not to ever get wider than either one of the guards. Stay between those there, and as centered as you can be is the best. The stance, guys, whether you squat, stand, put your legs on your knees, that's up to you. Whatever you feel comfortable in. My only advice would be have an athletic look to it. So don't look lazy. Don't look like I'm just sitting there, resting. Have an athletic look. Be able to make a quick movement, whether it be a slide by the defensive line and you need to make a quick step one way or the other where you can still see the ball, or you've got a ball carrier that comes at you and you need to take a quick step one way or the other. So make sure you have a good stance that allows you ease of movement. Ball spotting, guys, this should be umpire 101. Is how we spot the ball, and it drives me nuts when I watch film and I see us putting it on the front of the line instead of the back of the line. Find a tick on each play unless we're inside the 20s. Make sure we hit those, and we're going to touch on these more down the road. Make sure we hit one of those 5 lateral positions, meaning the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 spot positions. Ball mechanics, guys, this should be something that you nail down with your crew way before the first game ever starts, and make sure that every crewmate knows where you're coming to look for a ball at the end of the play. Whether it be an incomplete pass and you're going to that short wing side of the field, or it's a long run outside the numbers and you're going to that deep wing to get a ball. Everybody, based on the result of the play, should know where we're going to be at. Charles, I'll answer the 5 lateral ball positions here in just a minute on another slide. Pre-snap routine. So everybody has their own. Mine may be different than yours, but find something that's consistent for you. So what is mine? So after spotting the ball and clearing subs, which we're going to talk about that here in a minute, I then begin my count. I get my count. I signal over with my referee that I've got it. At that point, after I've done that, I'm either, most of this is all being done at the same time, but I'm switching my ball position on my left hand. I'm switching what down it is on my right hand. And I'm making sure I do that in the same order every single time. So that way, if there is something that changes or we have a crazy play, I know that I can rely on where those positions were. Then I'm getting back into my 8 yards, getting to where I can see a good line of the ball so I can see a good snap, and I'm getting ready for the play. So let me flip over. So here we have a picture of an umpire, and when we're talking about alignment, this is what I'm talking about. You can see he's relatively head up to the ball. He has a nose guard over top of his center, so he sidesteps slightly to his right. And this is what I mean. We don't need to get way outside of these guards. We need to stay as tight and centered to that guy as we can. And we'll look at more pictures here in a minute, the way we can see the depth and positioning that he's in. And this umpire here, he's choosing to stand upright. He's in an athletic position. He can easily sidestep and move if he needs to. So the next section, and a lot of these things that we're going to talk about are gearing towards us looking to some video here in a few minutes. So next section is working the play. What do we need to have a play? We have to have a legal snap, right? Everybody can agree on that. So what is a legal snap? Well, we should know our definition of one continuous movement backwards constitutes a legal snap, not picking up and putting it back down or resetting the ball. Need to have a legal snap. We need to see that happen. Once we see that happen, our next thought should be, what do I have coming at me? Is it a run? Is it a pass? So if we're reading run, well, then there's two things to read there. Are we reading it's a run up the middle, point of attack, or it's a stretch play? And if we're reading stretch, okay, well, is it stretch right or left? Well, based on what the linemen are doing, we can read and tell. And if it's a stretch to my right, I'm going to look back to the left, clear those blocks, and work my way back to front side, or vice versa. If it's a run up the middle, I'm looking at the blocks directly in front of me at point of attack, clearing those blocks, letting the runner go by, and then turn in and work in the play. So that's where we get to the part of talking about progression, is as we work from snap to run to pass, whatever the play might be, is working through blocks. So when we hear us later say, hey, Brad, I need you to tell me how you progress through this play, this is what we're talking about, is how we went from point A to point B to end in the play. Finally, you'll hear the term banana. That's how your movement at the end of the play is moving it out to where you're in a good position at the end of the play to finish the dead ball and ball mechanics section of the play. So, right. So a couple other things to think about when we have a flag on the play. So what's our flag placement? Is it a dead ball? Is it a spot? Is it prior to the snap? If it's prior to the snap, the flag just needs to go in the air. We don't need to throw it at anybody, right? If it's a spot, find a quiet spot. What I mean by finding a quiet spot is don't throw it out of play, or just nail the yard line in an open area that's near it. I've noticed watching film that we don't all know what to do when we have a flag on the ground. So once we throw our flag, what should we do? And at that point, we're talking about, we need to make sure we all kill the clock at the end of the play. And we're going to look at this in some video. We need to make sure once the play is over, we're killing the clock. I don't have it on here, but we need to know what the result of the play is, right? There may be a case where you, as the calling official, are going to walk up, report your foul, and tell the referee it's going to be declined because you know the result of the play, and they're not going to want to take that foul. Next, we're going to give a preliminary signal, because that's letting both the offense and defense know what we have on the field. The only time we would not give a prelim signal when there's multiple fouls and we need to discuss with another official on it. We're going to report our foul, offense, defense, what the foul is, what the number is, where our spot was. And like David said, yes, David will definitely stress that we need to continue officiating once we have a flag. Too many times once we throw that flag, we just stop what we're doing, and we're going to see that in some film too. So make sure once you have a foul in the play, you keep working the entire play. You keep turning and progressing and ending. Your progression throughout the play should not change. You should always end up somewhere near that dead ball spot to finish it. Finally, after we have a flag and we reported it, well, as umpires, we're the ones that have to enforce that foul and put the ball in the next spot, right? And we're going to talk about this some more, but we have to be 100% efficient, 100% know the rules, and do this correctly every single time. No excuses. I understand that there's some guys that are still learning the rule book, and that's okay. But as an umpire, we really, really have to know where we're going for it, how we're enforcing the foul, and you can't just rely on the referee to tell you every single thing. In fact, you should be telling the referee what we have and where we're going with it. And I have a little caveat on here that we're going to analyze fouls in future trainings. I didn't want to get into what's holding, what's chop block, any of that tonight. If we see something in a video that we're looking at, we may make a quick comment on it, but I really want to analyze actual fouls down the road when we have a few more videos to look at. And that way, as a group, when we decide to start analyzing fouls, as a group, we'll set a bar to where we can be consistent across the board. So we're all calling holding, theoretically the same. We're all calling whatever foul it may be at the same level that from game to game, so that coaches, players, they understand where that bar level is and where they can take it to. All right, so continuing from our progression, we get into, at the end of the play, we have a dead ball period, right? This is where I think as the umpire, it's extremely important for us to use our voices and be vocal. By that I mean, use your own technique. Plays over, roll off, whatever it might be. Talk to those guys. Make sure the colors separate. I call it circling the pile. I don't like to run directly in to the middle of a pile at the end of a play, because inevitably somebody's going to cheap somebody on the side and I'm going to miss it, or I'm going to end up getting a helmet thrown in my face, or shoulder pads come flying through me from a player getting shoved. I circle the pile, and usually by the time I use my voice and I talk to these players and they separate, that ball's sitting there waiting for me. That running back's sitting there holding it and about to hand it to me. Also, once we separate that out, if there is ball mechanics, we need to know where it's coming from, and we need to be talking to our wing officials about how we expect them to get that ball into us. So we're going to use the assumption that we have same team's balls on both sides. Understand that that's not always the case, and very often with high school football, we're not going to have the balls on both sides. But let's use the assumption that they are. And if we're inside the numbers, let's just start inside the hash. Inside the hashes, it's all ours all day long. If we start getting from the hash to the number, we might be looking for the short wing to toss us the ball, because the player is very likely to throw it out to them. They can toss us a ball, or the player can throw it directly to us and we can jog it back into our spot. If we're outside the numbers and it's a run play or a long pass play, outside the numbers, now we're looking towards our deep wing to rotate that in. If it's an incomplete pass, we're going to the side the ball was thrown to, but we're going to our short wing. And we'll see, unfortunately, you can't see a lot of this on film, but we'll see a couple of examples of where you can tell that communication wasn't there amongst the guys, and there's some confusion as to where that ball's supposed to be coming from. So once we have a ball in, next we go to our spot. And Charles, the spots say where I said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 only. So what that means is, starting on the press box side, the hash is number 1. So anything outside of that hash all the way to the press box sideline is going back to position number 1. Position number 2 is the press box side upright of the goalpost. Position 3, clearly middle of the field. Position 4, the other upright. Position 5, the other hash on the non-press box side. Why is this important? Why does it make a difference? Why not just say left hash, right hash? Well, when a coach is on the sideline yelling left hash, Well, your left hash and my left hash is different from the referee to me to the line of scrimmage. We're looking in different directions, but if we can coach them to say position one, well, we all know where position one is. It's position one. It's the same position no matter if you're going in, going out, which east, west, north, south, whatever. It's still position one. And the other reason this is important is the coaches have specific plays designed from these different positions. So if we know that they wanted at position two, that might just, for whatever reason, be they have a play designed for that, because they have the option after a touchback of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a couple other scenarios where they'll have an option of where to place it to, but we can ask them where they want it. And even if our line of scrimmage guy, the coach tells him position one, well, the coach tells him left hash, our line of scrimmage guy can very quickly go, oh, I'm on press box side. He wants it on position one, and relay the information to us. Gabriel, you asked, how do you indicate your ball position on your down indicator on your thumb? So for me, yeah, I do thumb as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way across, and then on my left hand, and on my right hand, and I know y'all can't see me showing my hand right now, but on my right hand, I do my downs with 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Excuse me, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's not hopefully we don't have a fifth down. So anyways, the last reason why this is important is if you're consistent with doing this, it can help your referee establish where that proximate tackle box should have been if there's ever a question as to whether or not the quarterback was out when he grounded the ball. So we know that if we ball started on position 3, if he gets outside of 2 or 4, he's outside of the tackle box. He can go to that spot where he released it from and go, oh, yep, no question, he was outside. That can also help us set where those parameters are and let the rest of the crew read off that as well. Substitution mechanics, after we spot the ball, we should always, our first look, we do not leave the ball until we check our eyes to the referee. So we should look at the referee. I haven't, unfortunately, you can't see everything on film unless you're there live, but there really should be a positive release from the referee. And you umpires, tell your referee you want this. You want a positive release every play, meaning he's giving you a signal off, whether it's a point or not. So we're not just automatically standing to see the iron cross, but when we do see the iron cross, we're obviously staying, but our referee might still be working something else, and we're going to say, yeah, we want a positive release. So we'll stay there. We don't have to stay right on top of the ball. We can be a few steps off as long as we have good communication with that. Good communication with that snapper will be okay. Then finally, I'd say penalty enforcement, and we're going to have a whole slide on this. We have to be 100% correct every single time. All right, so here we are, penalty enforcement. And guys, the questions are good so far.
Hey, Austin.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say that I've worked with many referees who also carry a ball position indicator, and it's helped me out when I have a brain fart, like on a previous spot penalty enforcement or something like that. So if your referee doesn't, it's not a big deal, but you might want to have a conversation with him.
Yeah, that's a good point, Brad. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Of one more reason of knowing is that way, previous spot, right, Brad? There is no exception, right? If previous spot means we were at 1 or 2 and we need to go back to 1 or 2, even if it was ran all the way across the field. So quickly, let's talk about penalty enforcement here for a minute. So, and I'm going to say this probably multiple times, is we have to be 100% correct every time. And I'll say that again and again and again, is there is no excuse for enforcing a penalty incorrectly. There's no excuse for it. And don't get me wrong, I've done it. I've done it more than once. I can name many examples, and I don't have an excuse for doing it. There should never be an excuse for enforcing it. That's one of the things that we can measure, and we can say, yes, we got it right. You can look at a holding call, you can look at a chop block, you can look at a false start, and you can go, I got that wrong. And there can be excuses for getting those wrong, you're straight line, you got fooled based on the movement of the body, you got there late, that's why you missed it. But the penalty enforcement is in our hands, and we're expected to get it right. That is one of the quickest ways we can lose the integrity, lose our integrity, lose the coaches and the players' confidence in what we're doing, is by enforcing it incorrectly. Now, don't get me wrong. If you realize that you've enforced it incorrectly, and this next snap hasn't happened, correct it. You know, it looks bad, but correct it. It lets everybody know we're trying to get it right. So anyways, continuing on, like, so where's it coming from? And what I mean by that is, where's the foul coming from? Not always is it our foul. Hopefully we're not throwing a lot of flags, but where's it coming from? What I mean by that is, we need to get in on the conversation. If our deeps are having a conversation, let them finish and find out what it is before they report it to the R, or find out what it is as they're reporting it to the R. We absolutely must always know the result of the play. Why is that important? Our referee almost never knows the result of the play. I had an opportunity this past season to jump over to the R, and I could not believe how often I did not know the result of the play, and how difficult it makes making an enforcement decision when you don't. These are as a umpire, we have probably the best seat on the entire field. We're right in the middle of action. We know where the next spot's going to be. We turn on passes. We know the result of the play, and it's our job to manage that game. So I challenge all the umpires this year, every time you report a foul, or every time you get in on that conversation, just let your referee know, hey, the result of the play was a complete pass to the 12. The result of the play was an incomplete pass. The result of the play was a fumble, meaning they're gonna decline, whatever it might be. Help your referee know always what the result of the play is. Finally, don't assume, you know, what the foul is. Find out what it is. Too many times, you know, we'll have a flag down, we'll see another flag come in, and we just automatically assume our line judge or our deep wing has the same thing we had. Don't assume, find out what it is. I put on here, verify with a calling official if their flag is good for a spot enforcement. Well, as umpires, again, we should be 100% with penalty enforcement. We should know where we're going from when we find out. So no, if it's a spot foul based on either the penalty statement or based on the 3-and-1 principle, and it's going to be enforced from the spot, find out, are they happy with their flag? Usually a good official will come in and fix his flag before he reports, but it's always just a question that I ask just to help me make sure, yeah, I'm going spot. I'm asking if their spot is good. Know where we're going from. Make sure we're enforcing from the right spot. Get back to, if we're going from previous spot, no, was the previous spot also includes that lateral position of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Once we know where we're going from, I do a 1, 2, 3 and X signal. Different guys have different signals that they share with their line of scrimmage. But mine's a 1, 2, 3 and X, and all I mean is 5, 10, 15 and a half, letting them know and confirming where we're going with, jogging it off together, checking with him to make sure we're good where we're putting it down at, waiting for the line judge to come up, and then putting it down. Finally, be efficient. We want to be 100% correct. We don't want to be super slow, but I'd rather you be slightly slower and be 100% correct than go too fast and then have to go and change that position. Ultimately, our goal, because this is a measurable, we can measure how long it takes for us to do this. And by measurable, I mean we can say the snap ended or the play ended at this second. It took us. Did I lose the sharing? 1 second. Looks like I might have lost it.
No, that's good.
Okay, I just saw a question on here that looked like I lost it. Jeff, yeah, I'll try and explain the 3-and-1. I don't know how much time I'll have to get into that. That's kind of probably a full class in and of itself. But basically, the gist of it is, if knowing what the basic spot was, if the foul happened in front of it or behind it, where we're enforcing it from. So I'll try and get in more details on that. But back to being efficient is, don't go so fast that you get it wrong, or you have to make a correction. But ultimately, we want to be efficient enough to where when our referee finishes his announcement, he turns around, blows it in, the ball's already in position, and we're ready to go. All right.
Hey, Austin, before we leave penalty enforcement, just one thing. If the enforcement screwed up, yeah, the umpire gets the blame, but that is a crew error. So all 5 or 7 members of the crew need to ensure that the foul is enforced correctly. Oftentimes with fouls in the middle where the deeps aren't involved with the foul, they just take the next 30 or 40 seconds off and don't pay any attention. They need to make sure the umpire is enforcing the foul correctly. And if they think it's not, then they need to go in and have a chat.
Yeah, I've got no problem with someone coming in and pausing the game for a few seconds to ask me, hey, Austin, should we have been at the whatever yard line? And then we can discuss, make sure we started at the right spot and went to the right spot. You know, sometimes it may have been a question as the previous spot was the 20 and the foul happened at the 21. And so we're actually enforcing it from the 21 versus the 20. So we just need to make sure we double check those, and sometimes it's real simple to make that mistake. But if encourage your crew to come in and double check, because like Brad said, it is a crew mistake. It's one of those ones where if it cost a team a game because we enforced a foul incorrectly, that's back on us. We can't let that happen. So, all right, so here's where I'd like to get a little bit of if you want to, I know it's a question answer thing, but hold on, let me look at this question. We have issues at times when the U assumes a penalty will be accepted in the end of declining. Goes with your slow down comment. Okay, I don't know who the anonymous attendee was on there, but yeah, good point. We want to make sure we understand that if the coach is wanting to decline it, and that's the point where we can slow down a little bit. Usually we know whether it's going to be accepted or declined pretty quickly based on what the preliminary signal was. And while it's also very important for us to know the result of the play and understand what the coach may be wanting to do there. So some miscellaneous pregame things that I try and do. And it's hard to do every time because with us only being allowed 30 minutes prior to the game, some of the stuff we're having to do just barely right before the game, because at 30 minutes, the band's out there doing their thing and the players are already off the field. But I try and find out what my snappers' names are. Sometimes it's the first, second, third play of the game, whatever it might be, that I actually finally get to meet who the center is, depending on whether or not they've left before that 30-minute mark or not. I like to know what my game balls are just to make sure the right ball is being tossed into me. Sometimes we have 12-year-old kids that are ball boys, and so we want to make sure we know what that situation is, whether or not they're on both sides or not, whether or not there's just one or there's two. And then as a crew, kind of figure out how to work through that situation to keep us moving efficiently. Again, sometimes I'm not allowed to get out there early enough to get the numbering exception on scrimmage kicks, and I have to figure it out the first time. But I want to make sure I know what that numbering exception is.
Hey, Austin, just one point. Although the 30 minutes deals with our jurisdiction, there's nothing that says we can't be out there early. Our particular crew likes to get out there at least 45 minutes to an hour early, at least someone out there. To your point of being able to have a little more time to get the pregame information that you talked about.
Agreed. Do what you're able to do. Get the information if you can. I write it all down on my game card. And occasionally, if the meeting with the coaches has gone pretty short, I'll ask that question during our pregame meeting. I try not to drag our pregame meeting out any longer than what David has his, and he keeps his short 1 to 2 minutes per coach. But I do try and keep that short. All right. So what else do we have? Brad, do you have any other items in pregame that you like to get done?
No, I just say that I wouldn't bother the head coach with the numbering exceptions. Get out there early and seek out the special teams coach. He's going to have that information.
Agreed. Curtis Johnson, you asked, do you ever give the dead ball signal for forward progress or other situations? I do, and it's simply one situation. That ball is clearly in possession and it's dead at my feet. That's the only time I give it. I'll give an incomplete signal when I have a possible trap or skip ball in, but I'm not giving a dead ball signal just to mimic the line of scrimmage guys, just to copy them. I don't see the point, because when I give that signal, that's telling everybody that I have the ball dead on the ground. Now, the only exception to that is I will give the kill the clock signal on 4th down. I'll do it every single time on 4th down, just because we should be killing the clock on 4th down every time. Next section. So a couple of miscellaneous things I like to do during the game. I'm very talkative with the players. For whatever reason, kids in Judson nicknamed me the country plumber. I don't know where they got that from, but they started calling me country. I guess I must talk with too much of an accent at times. But I try and talk to the players a lot. I try and let them know that I'm there to, not to coach them, but to help them understand the rules. If they have questions, I try and explain them to me, as long as they're asking questions about it. By diffusing the situation, if you're there talking to them, letting them know you're there to help them on their side, you can explain what's going on. The always know the ROP. We'll harp on this again and again. Always know the result of the play. We as umpires, again, we're controlling the game. We have to know what that result of the play is. If we have a chippy game versus a smooth game, in my opinion, it's all on us. If we allow it to get chippy, that's on us as the umpire. Not saying, hey, start throwing your flags left and right. I'm talking about getting in there, being vocal, getting guys separated, not putting hands on guys, but getting guys separated. And then if we have a smooth game, it's very important that, I don't want to say take credit for us, but if we're having a smooth game, that means we're doing our job. That means we're in there, we're talking to players, and they're just playing football. They're not trying to talk trash to each other. Anything else that guys like to look at or do during the game? Brad, do you have any items?
I'm always about one step behind you. The other thing for the pre-game information to get is the defensive captain name and number, so you can talk to him by name. Have him help you if he's, if there's a player getting out of control or getting close.
All right, thanks, Brian. So as we're going through film and we're trying to learn from each other and get better, what are some things that we as umpires can look at and say, hey, I can get better with this? And that's when we look at film. That should be our motive every time we look at film, is how can I get better? How can we as a group get better? And what can I analyze, not only from me, but from watching, I'll go and I'll watch Paul Yoder's film and say, hey, I can learn something from Paul today. What did he do that I like, and I can try that myself, or what did he do that I didn't like, and I want to make sure that I don't make that mistake too. Not saying Paul makes mistakes, but just I knew I could pick on him. So there we're starting to look at, as we look at film, how do I progress through the play? Did I get stuck on a block? Did I get stuck too far on the backside? Did I get too far forward? Did I move off a block too soon? Did I get to one late? So how do we progress through the play, and how do we clear blocks? Is very important, and we can physically see that while we're watching film as we move our head. Understanding what the material effect on the play is. So by that I mean, when we see a foul, well, we need to know where the ball was. If it's not a safety foul, we need to know where the ball was. Did it have an effect on the play or not? And we can do that a lot when we watch films. And a lot of times when it doesn't have an effect, that means we got stuck too far back. And then why do we, safety fouls? We must pick up all safety fouls. We want to be sure we're 100% on those. And then I have this comment on there: did I turn on the pass? Why or why not? What kept me from keeping through my progression? Brad, anything else you'd add to that?
No, that's good.
Okay. One second. All right, let me get the huddle up. Hey, Brad, do you mind answering Xavier's question on there about how would you handle disconcerting signals and why I bring this up?
Sure.
And any other questions you guys have for a minute, and we'll get this up.
So you're talking generally, if there's a something verbal that the defense is doing that's interrupting the cadence of the quarterback, my thought is that once the quarterback starts his cadence, any unnecessary call by the defense, especially if it's accompanied by an abrupt shift by the up lineman, then if it doesn't draw the defense off, then I'm going to have a chat with the person calling that shift or whatever they want to call it, a little preventative officiating. Generally, we can find, we kind of know that, your O'Connor teams, for instance, they live and die by that. And every time we have a conversation with the coach before a game, we tell them we're not going to tolerate it. And they become, they get up in arms. Well, that's just a shift. Yeah, but you only do it on 3rd and short. So just preventative officiating. If it's clearly something that's designed to draw them off and it's during the quarterback's cadence and it causes a reaction, then I'm going to try to put it on the defense early.
Okay, so the next question before I get into the huddle was ball position. If run play and split between the 1 and 2 position or 2 and 3, how do you mark it? I go to the closest one and I pick one. I'm real big on using that tick. So a lot of times between 1 and 2, I'll use that tick. Between the 2 and 3, I'll do it to the 3. All right, let me see. My screen back up now. Oh, not yet. All right, can y'all see the screen? So we want to look at a couple different plays here, but let's start out by analyzing what we talked about. Analyzing the positioning. So first thing, I don't know who the umpire is. I just grabbed a couple different random plays. First thing, I'm good with his positioning. He is right at 7.5, 8 yards. Thorne, did you answer whether or not you turn on the pass? Yes, you absolutely need to turn on the pass. If it's a short, quick pass, you'll want to turn quickly on it. If it's a long pass, you want to have a slow turn on it because, like we said before, you absolutely need to know the result of the play. And if you don't turn on the pass, well, how do you know the result of play? And on top of that, if you're still looking at a foul, unless it is a unsportsmanlike UNR type of foul, or you're still looking at action that is not one of those 2 items, then why are you looking there? Because the play is nowhere near that. You have plenty of backside help to help you out to keep those guys covered. So, all right, let's get back to this play. As you can see my mouse here, he's lined up right at 8 yards. I'm good with his initial alignment. Let's take his initial positioning. Let's take a look at his alignment. So now here we have our snapper right here. He's in a position where he can see the ball. I would like him to be a little bit tighter. But again, when we're looking at plays, we can do this to ourselves. Was I in good position? He's a little bit wide. I would like to see him be a little bit tighter. Okay. Back to the previous slide. So let's run through the play, and we'll look at how we look at it. So we got a pretty quick pass play that happens. We read pass. He believes that he has a foul, and he throws his flag. So this is where we talked about our flag mechanics. Right here, we have a flag down. We won't even comment on whether or not we agree with the flag or not. But we need to keep working the play. He throws his flag and he stops working the play. We have a potential for a trap ball right there, and our body needs to turn and see that. So this is a great example of one where we should have been turning on to see a trap pass or not. Go back. Now that we do have a flag on the play, we need to analyze our mechanics after we throw our flag. So we got a play that's over. What should we be doing? We should be killing the clock. We never kill the clock. We should be jogging in, letting them know what foul we have. Our flag placement, I'd rather kind of see it tossed towards the ground right at the line of scrimmage than thrown over players. But, you know, we can work on those. See, all of these things that we're looking at, we can work on and get better. Again, we can look at it from the end zone view. And he signaled. He did his pre-snap. He signaled. He counted to 11. I do the 5 big men, then I go 6. So I go 5 and 6. I try and do it fairly quickly, 2-2-2 a lot of times. And then have a snap. He has a flag down, and of course we can't see it at that angle. So any questions on this play? Yeah, Gabe, he called a chop block. Like I said, I don't want to spend a lot of time commenting on this one. This was would have been considered an incorrect call. The low block was actually a block on somebody else, and he just happened to trip him over. I got alignment on the ground, so that would be an incorrect call. But anyways, we need to work on our progression here and continue to officiate the play. I feel like once we throw our flag, we quit on this play. Let's go to the.
Yeah, the other thing I'd say is just slow down, process that flag. And it's like it's like everybody does it. You see it, you want to throw it, but see it, process it, then throw it.
All right, so we're going to go through this same routine a couple of different times and look at a few different plays. So, again, not necessarily looking at whether a foul was called or not, but we're just looking at our mechanics. So here we have, it appears that he's pretty well lined up, even with the ball. I'm good with that. He's right at 8 yards. I'm happy with it. I like his stance. He's standing straight up. He's athletic. He's reading the play. He's sliding with the play because he needs to be looking at these blocks right here. I'm sure his head is still here, but his body's telling me I need to get to these blocks here. So he's clearing that block because we're reading it as a stretch play, and now he's moving to these blocks coming towards the runner. The only thing differently I would like to see is I'd like to see us at the end of this play get more out here. Finish that progression. There's a lot going on in this play. We won't stand and comment too much on whether the hit was legal. I do not expect the umpire to get in on this hit. I think it'd be asking a lot for him to get over on this hit, but we need to finish the play out as we're progressing through it. Here's one that we stole from the young guns that had their class on Tuesday. So new rule change this year. This guy right here can no longer be lined up over the snapper, right? And that's really what I want to look at. We're not going to allow that guy. Clearly, part of our pre-snap routine on punts now needs to be to remind those linemen to clear that snapper and make sure they're outside of his shoulders. He's in good position. He's a little bit deep, but the punter's only at 10 yards, so I'm fine with his position. He's tight enough to where he can still see everything. He's looking at these 3 guys right here. Of course, we end up having a block punt, and we'll go through this pretty quickly. Oops. And in this situation, one of the few times we as umpires get to signal a touchdown, we come down again, just like they said the other day. No need in squaring up to the line. Follow those players in and just kind of look at them going into the end zone and then signal once you hit the goal line. So we're going to look at this umpire, I think, 2 plays in a row, and we're both here. We're looking at his progression and how he turns on a pass. So first look at it, we're seeing that he is right at about 7 yards off the ball. So he must be comfortable at 7. We want to be in between 7 and 10, so we're good there. So we'll get this one started a little fast. We have blocks that we're looking at. Quick pass, a little bit of a slow turn. I think we'd want to see our guys make with a tight pass like that, make a quicker turn and have our eyes down low towards the ground when we make that turn so we can see whether or not this ball ends up being trapped or not. Let's get to the end zone view. We're going to look at a tight view first. And you can see, I believe that's Leland, I'm not sure, but he stands still, he holds his ground, he lets those players work around him. And he ends up turning. He just ends up being a little late. My guess, and I've talked to Leland a lot, is it's probably that lineman that almost ends up in his lap. But he's trying to make a decision on whether or not he may have had an ineligible downfield player. So, anyways, let's look at it from the end zone view. So, here's his alignment. He's got this linebacker right here, so he needs to take this side step over to where he can see this snap right here. He's still within the guards, so I'm good with his alignment. Looking at these blocks right here, right now, our head should have been turned around. Once we feel that pass going over our shoulder, our head needs to be turning and being able to, because if that ball ends up being sliding down and trapped, you may be the only one that can see it. So here, same umpire, same game, looking at the same thing again. So here we're about 7.5, 8 yards again. We're good with his initial positioning. We're good with his alignment on this. Let's let it play through. Here he quickly realizes we have a tight pass across the middle, and he makes a good turn with it. Now we need to start progressing down and clearing these blocks to help our deeps out. And we won't worry about whether or not that guy fumbled in the end zone or was down. We'll just look at it from the end zone view. So again, I probably want to be a little bit tighter to that center since I don't have a nose guard over him, but overall, he's in good position. Clear that block, not a lot going on. Quick pass over your shoulder, good turn, sees where it's at. Now I know the result of the play and I can start progressing. I want to be, as I'm progressing down, I want to be talking to these guys right here. I'm letting them know, hey, that play's away. Don't do anything stupid, right? And we can work through this play. All right, and as we're working down here, obviously there's something he picked up on that he want to get. So we got one more. We're going to look at same game. We got a quick pass right in front of us. Very good job. Stay centered. Doesn't get flustered. And in my opinion, does a good job of working this play. Goes back to his previous spot. We started on position 1 in this case. It looks like comes across. No, we're incomplete. Let everybody know we're incomplete. So again, here every time we're looking at a play, we're going to talk about our positioning and alignment. He's lined up relatively head up, a little bit to the right. This linebacker here, it's good for him to take a step off of him. And that way, you want to stay consistent when you're working these games, where you're lining up on them. So that way they get to know where you're at too. So that way when they do their drop for pass, they're not dropping right into your belly. Good job here. Yep, incomplete. All right, here's one we're going to look at where, no, the old adage was when we read pass, especially in 5-man, the old adage was when we read pass, we wanted to get to the line of scrimmage. For many years now, we'd rather not do that anymore. I think less movement's better. Now we want to we hear the word cushion used a lot. We may want to keep a cushion, not let those blocks get too far away from us. So we might take a step up or two as those guys are dropping into their pass blocking. But we don't want to get too happy feet because we can end up putting ourselves in a bad place. So initially looking at it, I can't tell the angle here because I don't have an end zone view, but I think he's about lined up with the outside shoulder of the guard. He's at 7 yards, so he's positioned approximately correct. But then once the snap happens, he reads past and he starts moving up a little bit too fast. And then we just get into no man's land where we're going to get ourselves in trouble. Won't spend a lot of time there. Here we talked about, so when we have a false start flag placement, when it's a false start, we need to let everybody know we have a false start. Throw your flag up there, get on your whistle, come in, kill the clock whenever we have a false start. Theoretically, umpires, and maybe theoretically is not the right word, but umpires should not be calling a false start on anybody but the guard, center guard, because we have 2 line of scrimmage officials that should be looking at those tackles. Now, I say that with a caveat of if we end up having a tackle, jump, and false start, 1,000, no flag, no whistle, then yeah, don't let them have a cheap play. Get in there and shut it down. But some guys I get made fun of because I do this weird hop whenever I have a false start, because I throw my flag up in the air, I get my whistle, and I start killing it and trying to get in between the jump. Here our flag comes out. We don't kill there we go, we killed the clock, but we need to get up there a little bit sooner. So we want to get into there a little bit faster, and we want to leave this action over here on this tight end or tackle. I'm not sure which one it was. Looks like it was a tight end. We want to leave that action to the swing guy over here and let him call that foul. If it takes him a little bit to get to it, then go ahead and shut it down, because all the defense is already quitting on this play after that. But again, get that flag up there. Okay, so here we're looking at some substitution mechanics. Good job getting back, holding those guys up. Our referee is released. I'm going to go to the wide view. Our referee is releasing us. We're back into position. I'd like for us to be in our 7 to 8 yards before the ball is snapped and set, so that way we're not moving at the snap. Unfortunately, a lot of these teams, once we release them, they're eligible to snap it. You might just talk to your center and say, hey, let me get out of here before you snap the ball. But anyways, we're set. We got a snap. We'll read pass. Ends up being a run. And let me back up just a little bit. Whoops. So at the end of this play, I'm going to pause right here. We all know that we have a run that gets tackled somewhere out here outside the boundaries, right? Well, at the end of this play, this umpire should have been clearing these blocks as he moved. His body should have been somewhere right here at the end of the play, and then continue to move to dead ball somewhere right here. If we end up outside of these numbers, he should be turning and looking at this deep wing to throw him a ball in, and then he can jog it back into position. It kind of cuts off so we can't see if he does it here or not. We want to be right now at the end of this play, okay, whistles, plays over. We want to start jogging in all while dead ball officiating and end up somewhere right over here. So this way, after this wing comes up and clears the sideline, he can turn to the ball boy, grab a ball, and toss it into you. And we don't even make it out. There we go. We don't even make it out to the hashes here. We really need to be somewhere right in this area right here. We do no good to dead ball officiating if somebody decides to swing or push somebody. We do no good staying in here. This is where all the players are at. This is where we should be at. All right, we're going to look at a kickoff play real quick. We'll be real brief on this. Our umpires right here at the top. This is about the only look. This is about the only look that we get. And when we come into the field after we clear that it's a deep kick, we want to end up somewhere in this area. And we want to do a quick sprint and settle down and be ready by the time those players start engaging each other. We're looking at 3, 4, and 5 here. You're clearing the kicker, right? And he does a good job. It kind of cuts off there, but he does a good job of getting a quick jog in and getting set up for the play. Again, you can see him doing a quick jog in and getting set up for the play. We don't have an angle here. All right. Field goals, we're looking at our side judges come in with us. Again, before the snap, I'm getting up here and I'm letting them know, hey, this year you can't be over top this center at all. You have to be outside of his shoulders on both sides. So I'm getting in, I'm clearing all of these blocks right here, seeing a good snap, into the play. All right, we've got kicks away. I'm going to start moving up and just letting them know the play's over, clear off of each other. He does a good job. He gets up there. They talk to that player that tries to get a little extra. So overall, good job, both of those guys. And I know we're talking umpires here, but you can see those wings did a good job of crashing in too. Here's really our only look at that snapper. This guy right here this year is now illegal. That's a illegal formation on the defense. We have a 5-yard penalty from the previous spot. In this case, half the distance from the previous spot should the offense decide to enforce that penalty. All right. Let's go to so here, again, we're going to look at alignment and positioning. So, well, unfortunately, we don't have an end zone view on this one, I don't think. Probably a step outside where I normally like to be, but I got a big, this is me in here, I got a big nose guard there. I'm right at 8 yards. I'm pretty consistent with being at 8 yards. Now I'm going to read this play from the get-go. I'm signaling my 11 to my referee right now, and I'm getting set. I'm a stand-up straight type of guy. Not sure why I took that step forward. Again, that's why we analyze these things. Why did I do what I did? I don't know why I took that step forward there. I don't know if I looked for an angle on something, and maybe it just took my body that away. But then I have a quick pass, and we end up hitting the ground. So swipe incomplete. Look at another play here, and this time I believe it's going to be a running play. And we'll talk about clearing these blocks right here. Ends up being designed to be a stretch, ends up coming back up the middle, point of attack. And here's what I'm talking about of walking or being around the pile, not rushing into it. Yeah, we have a dead ball right here, but let's not be in such a hurry to get there that we overlook 53 having a cheap shot right here. Let's not run by these players. Let's be vocal. Let them know that the play's over, it's over, and by the time we get there, it's opened up to us. Again, we'll look at alignment. Here we have the hashes. We can see it a little bit better, a little bit more head up, right at 8 yards. Got a deep drop back. Trying to stay still with what's going on. And we turn, ends up dropping the ball, a good turn and signal incomplete on it. Here we're going to talk about a deep pass and why we still need to turn on a deep pass. So we're looking at these blocks, and we need to have turned probably about 3 seconds before that almost. We're still going to clear those blocks. We're not going to be in as fast of a hurry to do so. But why do we need to know? Okay, so we have an incomplete pass. Let's say there's a flag on the play. We need to be able to tell the referee it was incomplete. He may know it, but we still need to be able to tell him. Secondly, now that I know I'm incomplete here, what do I do next? Well, as we talked about earlier, we want to come right back to our line of scrimmage official because that's an incomplete pass on the side it went out, and jog down here to get that next ball for placement. Now, you know, we're talking about analyzing film as a crew. We can tell that this wasn't a discussion that this crew had because our field judge or side judge right here is asking for a ball. This isn't his ball to bring in. This ball always needs to come from the short wing on an incomplete pass. So those are discussions that we can have as a crew to make sure we're efficient with that process. I think this is just a tight view. All right, so here, initially we're at 8 yards. We're pretty well lined up. He's maybe a hair to the right. He's probably more like in the A gap between the center and the guard. So I think we're good on our alignment here. He had already gotten his count before he stepped back. But now we have a long stretch. It's a jet sweep stretch. And we're stepping forward towards the line of scrimmage when really we want to be stepping more to angle this away. So that way we've cleared this block. We should be moving to probably the block here, maybe the block here now, and working this way as this play stretches out as we get closer and closer to the point of attack. So at the end of this play, I'll pause it right there. Instead of jogging down into here and being with all this mess, come out over here. We know this ball is supposed to come from the side judge when our ball mechanics are over. You're not going to be getting all the way to this pile. Come down into this area right here. Clear these guys vocally and with your eyes. Let them know that the play's over. And find a soft spot right here where the side judge can pick up a ball, toss it into you, and then you can do a nice little jog back into our position, put it at the hash and go. Ryan Murphy asked, if you have ball boys on both sides, how do you know where the ball is coming from? Well, as we just said for ball mechanics, Ryan, if we're outside, if we're anywhere inside the hashes, we're obviously playing with the same ball. If we're between the hashes and the numbers, depending on if the running back or ball carrier throws us the ball, we'll play with that same ball. If they throw it out, we're going to grab it from the short wing. If we're outside the numbers, we're going to get it from the deep wing. If it's an incomplete pass, we're going to go to the short wing where the ball, towards the direction the ball was thrown. What's the reason for going towards the direction the ball was thrown? Well, because it keeps our balls even and we don't have to send guys back and forth and asking, well, I need another Bernie ball on this side, or I need another Alamo Heights ball on this side. So we can work it that way. Anyways, we want to, like I said on this play, we want to end up more in this general area so that after he comes up, our side judge is going to come up and clear these guys. I can then be standing right here waiting for a ball to be tossed into me. And occasionally he ends up getting busy with something. And part of my pregame when I'm talking to ball boys, I'll tell him, as long as you can throw a good crisp pass and you see me standing right here, you're welcome to throw it to me. And then I'll jog it in just to keep the game moving efficiently. All right, I think we got one or two more plays here. Here we can see it from the end zone view real quick. I think we're almost out of time. Again, movement. We kind of lose this view of it here. We want to get out here into this junk here. All right. I think this, I'm not sure who this guy is, but I think he ends up doing a really good job. Working these blocks, working it. And as I said, keep your progression going to where you're seeing all these blocks. Come out here into this soft spot to get your ball in. And that's the end of the plays. It kind of ended up back at the front there. Any questions before we wrap up? We've hit our hour mark. So any questions that we have from anybody? Give you a minute or two, and then we'll wrap up. So as any questions come in that we might want to answer, so as we go forward and we plan to do another training in the upcoming weeks, because even if we don't have a season, guys, we need to keep training. We need to stay sharp. My request from all you umpires would be, send me 4 or 5 plays. Send me a holding call that you like or did not like, or send me a false start, chop block. Send me something where you can say, do you like how I moved? How could I have been in better position? And we'll break those plays down together on here and all learn from each other. That's the only way we're going to get better, is learning from each other. And we can figure out how to set a bar as a group. And by setting a bar, it's what level are we going to consider that a material restriction on a play in order to throw our flag? You know, I teaching the new members class, and last Monday I told the guys, I am not teaching you how to throw a flag. I am teaching you how to manage a game. And I think that's extremely important as a group. Is we don't want to just throw our flags all game long. We want to find the big ones, and we hear it all the time, find the big ones. Way more importantly, we want to be consistent as a group overall and have those large material fouls versus just tick-tacky type stuff. So like I said, any questions, reach out to me, and we'll wrap it up there, guys. Appreciate it. Brad, anything else?
No, Austin, you did a wonderful job. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
I will say that we're all going to come to your house for any future Zoom meetings because you obviously have superior internet. Your film wasn't jerky at all.
Oh, really? Well, good. Good. I'm glad to hear that.